This week on Run Junkie, cross-country madness strikes the land. An 18-year-old runs 2:06.
Freshman girls throw down in Portland. Distance runners throwing the shot put.
And we look deep behind the scenes of an Alex Lore interview, all in this week's episode of
Run Junkie!
This week, we got to start off with some NCAA cross country. It was ridiculous all over the country. And the main show was on Friday in Wisconsin, where the #2 Wisconsin Badgers dominated the field, finishing all 5 right together in a 2-second spread. I think in cross country that might be a thing of beauty, a masterpiece maybe.
It really is, and we talked to Coach Mick Byrne. He said the game plan was for them to run as a pack, and they were successful. The Badgers are looking tough.
And just behind them, BYU looked good. They finished runner-up, so they are the real deal. They finished 5 points ahead of Stanford. Stanford runs a good squad, but not their full A squad. They had a guy like JT Sullivan who didn't run this weekend, but they unleashed the Rosa boys who actually didn't finish in the top 100, so some room to go there.
Princeton looked really strong. It was 4th place finish. 6 guys in the top 80, led by their stud, the reigning Wisco champ, Don Cabral. Behind them was Indiana finishing 5th without Andy Bear, but the surprise of the day has to go to the University of Texas, who finishes 6th after not being ranked in the top 30 at all. And why is it a surprise? Well, a couple reasons. 1, they were unranked. 2, they were led by a freshman, Craig Lutz, who finishes 15th overall, which leads us into the freshman watch. Now, Craig Lutz was not the guy we were looking to see leading that charge. A guy named Lucas Vervikas also debuted that day. Lucas Vervikas went out hard for the first 3K. He was in it for the top 10. Then there was just a slight hill. We had a great clip of it on the feed. He just starts fading once that little 4K hill hits, and then he fades back to 62nd. And what does that mean? That means, I don't think it means too much right now. Some people are saying, oh, Lucas had a bad race, this and that. You know what? It's his first college race. Lucas will have a lot to learn from this race, but going back to Craig Lutz, if you watch the video from about 4.5K to 6K, he's like 10 seconds behind the Wisconsin guys, and all of a sudden just closes that gap. He runs like an 8:30 or 8:42 last 3K. Lowy Lang ran 8:38. So that puts into perspective how fast he was going that last part of the race. Man. Speaking of Lowy Lang, it was domination station in Wisconsin for the guy from Arizona. He was leading right with the pack at the mile, and then at 3K, he's 10 seconds up on the whole field, and there's no looking back. The one thing I'll say is he's 10 seconds up at 3K, but only wins the race by 5K. So you gotta question, was he pushing it? Was he tired? How will he respond when he has full competition? He puts that gap on, and he keeps that gap the whole time. Now, runner-up to Lowy Lang for the 2nd time this year, NC State's Ryan Hill. I saw a little thread that said, who is Ryan Hill? If you've been watching FloTrack in the last 2 years, you should know who Ryan Hill is. He ran 8:35 for his last 3K, and man, he really just has that stealthy ninja kick. Chris Derrick, a little ways back in 6th place, was battling with Diego Estrada for that runner-up spot, but faded over the last K. He was not too happy with the race, but he says Pac-12s, he'll be back, and he's looking to take Lowy.
I got some ideas. We'll see what happens.
So he's not out of reach.
I mean, how could I think that? If I want to be, you know, how could I say? Yeah, if I'm gonna wear this jersey, how can I sit there and say that to you?
On the women's side, 2 big surprises up front, with the Washington Huskies taking the W with 199 points. The Huskies didn't have a great showing at GRIAC. They dropped down to 26, but they take the big W at this weekend. But I don't know if that was the biggest surprise of the weekend.
Yeah, I don't even think surprise is the right word. I think we have to say the shock of the day goes to the ladies from Vanderbilt.
Who?
Vanderbiltski. And a name you should remember now, because they're actually very good showing. It wasn't a fluke. They had one of the strongest packs in the race. Only 37 seconds between their 1 and 5. That's the 2nd best spread in any team in the top 10 at that race. Wow. Now, know this about Vanderbilt. The team has never made it to the NCAA championships. They've beat so many ranked teams, and teams probably will get top 2 in the region, that they probably have to finish worse than 5th in their region to not get there. Now behind Vanderbilt, Arizona looks strong in 3rd with a good group of 6 runners. They do have a potential to be a top 10 team. And behind them, Villanova and Stanford, both with similar problems. They need a 5th runner, and if they do, they could be very good. So to go along with this game's what if, shoulda, woulda, coulda, Providence finished back in 16th, but they don't run their 2 best, Emily Sisson and Shelby Graney. If they run, they could be the best team in the country. The great thing is we'll see Nova and Providence square off in 2 weeks.
Well, enough about all this team stuff. What about the individual duking it out battles? We got to see Sheila Reid and Jordan Hussey. It was like a recap and a preview for things to come. They both debuted at this race. They both looked very strong, and we got to see Sheila Reid really just gut it out down that final straightaway, just barely edging out Jordan Hussey.
Yeah, it was like a remake of many races we've seen. It's, you know, what does Jordan have enough to get her at the end? What does she have to do to get that final 200 meters?
We'll see. Hopefully she figures it out.
Now, a girl that I've been talking about since early in the season is Cal's Deborah Mayer. I said to you, I think early, this is my dark horse pick, and she showed it this weekend, finishing third against a strong field. And I think that we're gonna see her continue to get stronger and stronger as the season goes, maybe a little bit closer to them with the final 400 meters to go.
Now, looking at our freshman watch on the women's side, big ups to Syracuse's Shayla Tutti. Now, she has Tutti? Now, Shayla Tutti was 7th at NXN last year, and she really hasn't had great finishes so far this year. I think she was in the 50s at Paul Short, so she really had a breakthrough performance at Wisconsin.
And kind of similar on the guys' side, we expected a different freshman to be leading the charge. Aizen Cuff on the women's is who we were expected to see. She was back there in about 55th place, but you gotta think come Pac-12, she'll be back up with leading the group. Back up front with the Stanford crew. Wisconsin wasn't the only place we were this weekend. We were live from Terre Haute on Sunday for the pre-national meet, and it was a great race. On the men's side, we saw the Colorado men, I could say a little bit of domination. They won by over 20 points, and Andy Wacker looked good up front, finished in second, but they have no Joe Bossard. And you throw him in the mix, they got a great top 6. They definitely have podium potential.
Speaking of podium potential and the Buffs, Mr. Amar Musa debuted in his Colorado Buffs uniform this weekend. He was the top freshman finisher at pre-nats with a 19th place finish.
Yeah, he ran 24:36, which you should know is 44 seconds better than my time on that course and 1 second behind Lucas's time at Wisconsin. Another team that looked good from the West was Portland Pilots. They finished second in front of Iona, but look for them to improve with the improved fitness of Joe Ashasoro.
Yeah, but up front was Lenny Carrere. He looked crazy smooth from Iona, and it kind of makes you wonder, Lelang, Carrere, what do you think, head to head?
Oh, it's gonna be a tough one. We've seen Lelang dominate. We saw Carrere kind of sit and take off with about, I don't know, 2K to go. And Lelang's definitely run faster times right now. But man, you can't forget those performances Carrere had last fall or spring.
Speaking of the Iona Carrere and the Iona Gales, Coach Ricardo Santos is looking for a 5th.
You know, it's a message to one of those guys that, hey, you know what, step up if you want to be on this team and if you want to get a trophy, if that's the team goal.
On the girls' side, Florida State dominated. They could be the top team in the country. They put 6 girls in the top 20.
I think Karen Harvey has their team squad at the #1 spot right now. They are the team to beat. And behind them, a former #1 ranked team was Georgetown, who had about a minute spread between their first 7 runners, which is pretty good, but they don't have Rachel Snyder, they don't have last year All-American, Maddie Chambers, and they're gonna need them at full strength if they wanna compete for a top podium spot.
Another thing we noticed is Emma Coburn was not in the Buffs lineup. She was on the sideline cheering. What is her status? The Buffs, I think, finished 4th, but where could they be with Emma? Will she be back in the lineup when it comes to Pac-12 time?
Or will she stay cheerleader status? On the individual side, we saw pretty much the same race as we did on the men's. Risper Kamayo pulling away from the field in the last couple K, but the runner-up, an unknown, someone we should know though.
Abby DiAugustino, I believe so. Abby, the sophomore from Dartmouth. She's the junior 5K record holder, but nobody really talks about her. She's kind of under the radar, but not really anymore.
She reminds me kind of like an Angela Bazzari, who's like kind of quiet, but very fierce competitor, and closed the gap on Risper, only finished like 4 seconds behind her.
Wow.
And in Arkansas this weekend, we saw the chili. It's a little chili. Chili Pepper Invitational, where Oklahoma State dominated and finally looked to have 5 guys scoring. John Stablowski is back as their 5th man. This guy was 118th at the Jamboree a few weeks ago, was their 11th man. Now he's back, but we have to see some consistency. He's a returning All-American, so he should be there, but time will tell.
You know what I'm wondering? Where was the other Oklahoma team? They're ranked so high and we were expecting them to go duke it out with Oklahoma State, but they weren't there. But on the individual side, a big shout out, Cam Levins wins another meet. He won Dellinger, and now he wins the Chili Pepper Festival, and I'm kind of thinking, maybe, dark horse? Dark horse? Nobody's talking about it. What do you think, Ryan?
Wow, you know what? Cam Levins, you are having a great season. You're a 1340 guy on the track, which is very respectable, but he's won 2 races
against people who don't really care about winning the individual race. He's won against Wisconsin, he's won against Oklahoma State. He's never been to NCAAs, so I don't quite think he's at dark horse status yet.
Fine, fine.
And I'm a little surprised you're bringing him up. Didn't he hand you your ass a little bit at the Summit League conference?
You know what? Basically everybody did that day, Ryan. Utah is just too dang high.
However, there was a dark horse to come from this meet, but it was on the women's side. Celia Fortoff from SMU wins the race by 20 seconds. She beats Rose Tanui from Texas Tech, who finished 5th last year at the NCAA championships. Okay, that was it.
Now moving on to some high school action, we're gonna stay at the Chili Pepper Festival and we're gonna talk about South Lake Carroll dominating both the boys and the girls. The boys scored 22 points and the girls 28 for a big old clean sweep, and they get to eat the tacos first.
Now on the East Coast, in Delaware, Julie Macedo takes down Haley Pierce by a pretty astonishing 42 seconds. She also breaks Pierce's record from last year by 10 seconds. She runs 16:55, her second time under 17 minutes, but the Tatnall girls dominate with 27 points, and we gotta give a shout out to Louis Bango, who gave us the inside scoop that Pierce is coming off of a foot problem, and we'll be ready to go in mid-November.
At the Adidas XC Classic, it was the Summit and South Eugene show. Summit won the girls title, South Eugene won the boys. In the girls race individually, 4 of the top 6 finishers were freshmen. The girls winner was Sarah Tsai. She's from South Eugene and she's a freshman, but she was playing soccer at the beginning of the fall, and now she's setting course records.
And another high school news, guess what else happened?
I don't know, Ed Cheswick set another course record or something?
Yeah, he actually did. Now moving on to the pro scene and some marathoning news. This past weekend in Toronto, there was a Canadian showdown with guys trying to get on that Olympic team, and Reid Coolsat came out on top, running 2:10:55 to get on the squad. Also, his teammate Eric Gillis gets it by like a second, and Coolsat is about 46 seconds away from the Canadian national record.
A Canadian that wasn't in the mix though, Simon Bairu. He pulled out of the race a couple weeks ago. He still needs to qualify.
And also we gotta give a shout out to Mr. Scott Overall, the UK athlete that debuted at 2:10:55, runs an identical time to Reid Coolsat. And really the only reason we give him a shout out because we forgot a couple weeks ago and he's really upset with me.
Well, sticking with marathon news, in Amsterdam, an 18-year-old Eric Ndima set the junior world record for the marathon.
2:06:07? I don't even know if I was running 26 miles a week at age 18.
Let's be honest.
I know, it was probably a 30. And more marathon world records, Paula Radcliffe's whole ratification and all this craziness saying it doesn't count, the 2:15. Well, she's been pretty vocal on Twitter, thanking everyone for their support and also saying, I'm a runner, not a fighter, but I'll stand up for what I believe in. So check out Paula's Twitter if you haven't already. As we get ready to close things out, we have a fun time taking a look at what we learned over this past weekend through our travels. And one thing that sticks out in my mind is Lawi Lalang is a huge mileage junkie.
What are you running right now?
Right now, I'm not doing that a lot of mileage. I usually do maybe some like 50.
50 miles a week?
Yeah, 50 miles a week.
Okay.
Yeah.
I learned after studying Iona's roster that Matt Bailey apparently threw the shot put last year in the indoor.
When filmed correctly, cross country can be a brutal sport.
Come on, you have to get across. Go on, cross. Get across. Here you go. Get her, go.
And if you have to go to the bathroom, do not hold it for 3 hours.
I've literally had to pee for the last 3 hours.
Now as our college coverage takes a rest this weekend, we got some high school action. Where are you gonna be?
I'm gonna be out at Mount Sac getting hold of all that California goodness.
Make sure to check out the Colas calculator that went up yesterday to see what teams are going to the NCAA championships.
On Elite 50 action, check out what makes the Summit High School girls tick.
And this Thursday, a new Flow Awards watch list will be released, so be on the lookout for that. That's your weekly fix. We'll see you next week.